Okay, I was trying to do the little outro or little intro, but I guess I did it too soon. Let me go live on TikTok over here. Um yeah, so I am live now. Okay. I have the little background, the little Diddy background there. Child, who knows how that looks? Um, I thought it would be a cute little look. I thought it would be a cute little look because we are talking about Diddy. So we're gonna see anyway, child. All right, so look, I'm live. I was down at the courthouse. Listen to me. I was at the courthouse all night long, like literally all night long. I got there at 11:30 last night. Okay, get down. I got my spray bottle on deck. I'm not playing with these cats today. I got to the courthouse last night at like 11:30 at night. Okay, got to the courthouse about 11:30 at night, and I literally ended up spending the night on the street like an unhoused person because I wanted to get into the main courthouse. Okay, this whole time, move back a little bit. This whole time I've been going to the courthouse, I'd never gotten into the main courtroom. I was always in the overflow room, and I really wanted to go into the main courtroom. I tried before. The first time I went on the day that Cassie testified, the first day Cassie testified. I got there at 2 a.m., okay? And I was number 56 in line, okay? I was number 56 in line. So after that, I just kind of like got turned off. I was just like, I'm not going to bother going to the courthouse, no 2 o'clock in the morning and all that stuff like that. I was just like, I'm just going to go regular time. So I just started going at like, 8:30, 9 o'clock, 9:30 or whatever. And that's what I was doing. But the trial is about to be over. We're literally about to get a verdict like in the next, on probably like Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, maybe. So this was like going to be like around one of my last chances to get into the main courtroom. So yesterday I didn't go to sleep. Okay. And I pontificated, over it for a little bit. I was just like, wow, should I even bother to do it? And at about maybe 9:30 last night, I said, you know something, just get up and go. So I got up, took a shower, and I got on the train and I got up there at about 11:30 at night. And there were about, I want to say, there were 8 people in front of me. I was number 9. Okay. Now, just a quick thing, and I'm going to get into the defense closing arguments. So basically, when you get up there, like I said, there were 8. I was number 9. There are only 14 people who are allowed in the main courtroom. Okay, 14 people allowed in the main courtroom, and something happened, and now there are 3 people who are automatically added to that list, which is weird to me. 3 people added to that list. Okay, so now it cuts it down from 14 to 11. Okay, from 14 to 11. I got up there. I was number 9. All right, got up there 11:30. I had a blanket. I was laying on the ground, honey, like an unhoused person in the trenches, honey. Okay, it was raining. It was raining. I had an umbrella. We were out there, and it was just crazy. It was crazy. So at about maybe 4 o'clock in the morning, there were other people that started to come. It started to get a little bit dicey because it kind of looked like some people were trying to like act like they were further up in the line than they were. Okay. And I actually ended up getting into it with somebody on the line. And I felt, hi, Irvin. I felt so bad. I'm not even going to lie. I wasn't nice to her. I did kind of end up going back and forth with her because it really was giving that she was trying to be slick and skip the line. Okay. But I ended up apologizing to her as the evening progressed into the morning. I ended up apologizing to her, and well, we apologized to each other and we hugged it out and everything like that. But it's just that when you're in a situation like that where it's so few people allowed into something, it just tensions were high and it just was whatever it was. But I ended up getting into the main freaking courtroom. I ended up getting there my first time. So I got to see Diddy like in the flesh, okay? Clear crystal, not on the monitor from the overflow room. I got to see him like clear. everybody was in there today. Everybody in there. Mother was there. Mama Combs was there. The girls were there. The sons were there. Everybody was there. So let's get to this closing argument situation, okay? So yesterday the prosecution had their closing argument. So it was the defense's turn today, all right? And Mark Agnifilo is the one who was given the closing arguments. Now, look, some people said that they felt like Nicole Westmoreland should have been the one giving the closing argument. I think Mark Agnifilo actually did a very, very decent job. If you're not following me on TikTok, give me a follow. I'm trying to get up to 2K like today, if that's possible. That would be fantastic. Or like my friend Irvin says, mantastic. Okay, he's actually watching. So anyway, okay. So he actually did a really, really, really good job. Okay, so today's day 31. Now when I got there, when I got into the courtroom, the defense was just kind of gathering exhibits. You know, they have like the exhibits, the big gigantic poster board and stuff like that. So they were getting everything together, right? And Sean, Combs, Diddy, I'm just gonna call him Diddy. Diddy comes in, he starts greeting everybody and stuff like that. His smile looked a little more genuine when he was smiling at certain people. Okay, I really feel like he was trying to really put it on, like he's like really upbeat and in good like spirits and stuff like that. But you could see that his smile was definitely more genuine when it came to certain people. All right. His smile was super genuine when he saw the girls, because I think that obviously he loves all his kids, but I think the girls hold a special place in his heart, so he was super excited to see them. The guy Charlucci, he kind of gave him like a little what's up. I was thinking that he would have gave him a little bit more of a good greeting, because Charlucci is literally up there every single day, rain or shine, no matter what, and he's always around to give the family what they need and encouragement and support and stuff. So I don't know, maybe it's just a man thing, like, hey, what's up or whatever. So he had on a light colored sweater and a white shirt underneath. His hair is gray, as you know, but Diddy does not look bad. I do not know. And I said this before, like, even when I used to see him on the monitor in the overflow room, he does not look bad. Diddy is not partying. He's not doing substances or anything like that. He looks clear. His skin looks very, very, decent. It looks like he could use a little sun, but he looks okay. The smile is bright. He has a very, very charismatic air about him, and that he looks very, very decent. So, Mark Agnifilo is there. He's kind of like pacing back and forth, and he looks very, very apprehensive. He looks like super nervous. Like he really, really did look nervous. Okay. I know it's not his first rodeo, but this is a major case. He did look a little apprehensive. One of the jurors was having a transit issue, so they were kind of running late. So we were just kind of sitting there waiting and stuff like that. So eventually, I guess they get the juror situation together. All rise. Get the jury goes in. Okay, I'm gonna get into the makeup of the jury a little bit later on in this live, and I'm gonna talk a little bit more about some of the jurors and what I think. Okay, but anyway, so Mark Agnifilo goes into his closing arguments, and he says that this is a tale of two trials, a trial that's going to be told by evidence, and it's a trial that's going to be told by prosecutors. And he basically is saying that the trial, the case is exaggerated, and Sean Combs is just somebody who liked to use, substances, right? And he was somebody who, was in the lifestyle. And when I say in the lifestyle of people who like to be with more than one person at one time. Okay, I got to be super careful. Diddy's parties were great. Tony, did you attend Diddy's parties? How did you know that? So I got to be real careful with the wording that I use here on TikTok, because they will cut me off in a second. Okay, so anyway, all right. So he was just somebody who liked the lifestyle. The case is exaggerated. He was a swinger. And this is not a racketeering case. Okay. He said that Sean Combs is a self-made Black entrepreneur. And, he goes on to talk about how many government witnesses said that they were actually moved by Sean Combs, right? And he said that uh, Mia was actually so devastated that she wanted to, end it all. Remember Mia's testimony when she, got fired? She talked about how she, wanted to end it all. This is how much she loved working for Diddy, right? And basically, he's a polarizing figure since the 90s. And he said that, this is not a racketeering case. And he said, are you kidding me? He said that, the people in his life are well taken care of. He said that Jane, okay, and her child have a beautiful home. And he basically starts talking about the people who testified. He said that the government made a huge deal about searching his home, and they found a lot of baby oil and Astroglide and stuff like that. And he said that this isn't about crime, this is about money. And he said that in the trial, 881 times they mentioned the word love. Okay. He said that the case was about love, jealousy, infidelity, and he made a point of mentioning money again. Okay. And he basically said, look, we owned the DV. We owned it. And it's true. They really, really did own it. In the very beginning, in opening statements, that they made no type of, they didn't try to mince words, because you can't, because everybody saw the CNN video. So you can't mince words, right? And he said, look, he didn't do the things that he's accused of. He said that even Cassie made a statement about the video, basically saying that, she didn't even want people to see the video. Because remember, at the time, we found out that Cassie had a movie premiere and stuff like that. So Cassie didn't want the video getting out either. And he really, really just tried to downplay the video in the beginning of his closing argument. And, he basically said that, as it relates to, Diddy and Cassie, he's not going to go through a whole lot of charts and stuff like that. But he did say that Cassie met Combs and they were in a loving relationship. And he said, look, at the end of the day, Cassie's the winner. She's sitting somewhere on $30 million, honey. Okay. Between the settlement that Diddy gave her and the 10 million that she got from the Intercontinental. Okay. That's 30 million. And he basically said, look, Cassie wasn't naive. She wasn't like some little snowflake or anything like that. They were truly in love with each other. And he said that Cassie was very deeply in love with Diddy, and she was insanely jealous. I did make a notation here about the jury. One thing I noticed about the jury, at certain points, they were very, very, very stoic. For the most part, most of the jury is stoic. Okay, going forward, there's one particular juror. I don't know if so she didn't bring criminal charges. Cassie? No, she didn't. Cassie didn't bring criminal charges. Cassie, she didn't. She was asked at the time, did she want to call the cops and stuff like that? Because remember, during the testimony, when they questioned one of the hotel workers, a security guy, they asked, did Cassie want to call the cops? And she said no. She explicitly said, no, I don't want to get the law enforcement involved. Okay. So, but this is because she had a movie premiere coming out and she just didn't want the attention. Okay. So, so I was going to say, so there's one particular juror. Okay. Listen, you're probably going to hear about this juror, like other people that were there in the courtroom are going to talk about this other juror, child. This juror that was there, she's a person of color. I'm not going to go any further. And while everybody else is there, like with just like a real stoic face, she is, she be laughing at stuff, grimacing, doing all that stuff. Okay. And it's super noticeable. Like it's really, really, really noticeable. I'm going to get more into that later. Okay. So Mark Agnifilo says racketeering is basically the opposite of Cassie and Diddy's relationship. And they just used to just argue over jealousy. Okay. And he went, reiterated talking about the lifestyle. This is a lifestyle that they were leading, the swingers lifestyle. And he brought up Kid Cudi. He said that Cassie played both of them good. Okay. And that she lied to both of them. And he said in quote unquote, Cassie kept it gangster. And he said that he talked about Capricorn Clark and the fact that Capricorn referred to her and Diddy's relationship as super platonic. Meanwhile, we did find out that she sent him a text message that she had the biggest crush on him. Okay. Now, again, he brings all that up as far as Capricorn Clark is concerned, because he's, trying to show that working for Diddy was not bad, like how people are trying to say that it's bad. And she actually really did like him. She had a crush on him. He talks about the polygraph that Capricorn Clark said lasted for 5 days. I don't know if you remember that. Okay. You said Diddy is guilty of 3 charges. Which charges are those? I mean, I have a feeling which ones you want to say, but go ahead and leave it in the chat. Okay. So the polygraph lasted for 5 days. So remember, she said that she had the jewelry. The jewelry came up missing, right? And in order for them to find out what happened to the jewelry, they took her, D-Rock, right? Took her over to the guy who gave her the polygraph for 5 straight days in a row. Okay. So he said, how did the polygraph test last for 5 days? He said, what is this, door-to-door kidnapping? So he said that the lie detector test, that's insane. And he said that, it doesn't add up. He said that at the time, Sean Combs was starring in The Raisin in the Sun. And he said, look, you guys have the right to say that kidnapping is a stretch. Okay. And he basically said that over the course of several days, Capricorn Clark had the opportunity to leave and come back several times. Okay. Because remember, she was interviewed over the course of 5 days. Okay. So Capricorn wasn't kidnapped. And he also talked about Capricorn's sworn testimony stated that there was no car chase as it relates to Kid Cudi, and she went on her own volition. Now, here's the thing. Remember, one of the predicate acts is kidnapping, right? So he's trying to say that whole situation that happened with Kid Cudi, Capricorn Clark went on her own volition. There's no photo of the glove, because remember, they said that there was a glove inside of the car, right? There was a glove inside of the car. There's no photo of a glove. And he basically said that the investigation stunk. And it looks like, he said it was stunk. He also talked about partial DNA profile consistent with a female, and why didn't the government go more into that? Okay, if you're not following me here on TikTok, give me a follow, okay? I'm trying to get up to 2K today, hopefully, possibly. Let's see. And I mean, he's right. They didn't really get it. The government really did not get into that partial DNA profile consistent with a female that was on the Molotov cocktail. Okay. Now, that same female juror that I was telling you about was definitely in agreement. Okay. And kind of like nodding her head. Right. So I thought that was interesting. And they, again, with the whole, kidnapping situation, they talked about Cassie in the Intercontinental Hotel, and the fact that, she was more concerned with publicity and not law enforcement. And he did admit, he said that Diddy acted like a fool when he was talking to Cassie on the phone after the incident. Okay. He said that the law enforcement came 4 hours later to Cassie's home, not because anybody called. Because remember, after the incident at the hotel, Diddy went over to Cassie's house, right? And he was banging on her door with a hammer, child. Okay. And that's how law enforcement ended up, being called. Okay. And, so he also said that, as far as the bribery is concerned, okay, that D-Rock was not trying to bribe Capricorn, okay. I'm sorry, not Capricorn. He wasn't trying to bribe Mia, because remember, they were talking about Mia and the fact that she said that she, was kind of low on cash, and this was around the time that all this stuff was swirling about Diddy, right? So look, let's keep it 1,000, okay? they contacted her. Neither one of them had spoken to Mia in forever. Diddy's, under investigation and stuff like that, right? So all of a sudden, after like months and months and months and months and months, they call her. Okay, D-Rock calls her, has a conversation with her, and she's like, "Yeah, my little finances or whatever." And he's like, "Yeah, let me, give you a little something." I can't believe Capricorn went back to work for Diddy. Well, she did say that she was having a hard time finding work, and she went into, in her testimony, she talked about Diddy being like super powerful and stuff like that. So this is one of the reasons why I'm assuming she is saying that she, had to go back to work for him. Okay. So, all right. So let's, so as far as the CNN incident is concerned, he referred to it as a misdemeanor. All right. And he said that lifestyle, she loves the life, Emmy said. All right. And triple OG cap. I'm not sure. Explain that to me. You saying who's capping? And he says that the incident is a state crime, not a federal crime, as far as the CNN video is concerned. Okay. I made a notation here that Diddy was rocking back and forth. He did a lot of that today. How do you feel about all his kids being there listening to all that trash talk? You listen to me. I went live earlier and I definitely did discuss that. I don't think that I wouldn't have my daughter there. Okay. I wouldn't have my daughter there listening to that. And my daughter's a grown woman. I wouldn't have her there listening to that. I just wouldn't. I would be super embarrassed. I think that he's trying to show a united front with the jurors and stuff like that in the public. But personally, I just wouldn't have my daughter there sitting there, or my sons, or anybody. My mom, when she was still like, I wouldn't have her there sitting there listening to none of that. Okay. Doesn't she have a child with a disability? Yes. Her child, if I'm not mistaken, is nonverbal and he's on the spectrum. Okay. This is one of the reasons why she said that the stakes were higher for her, because she didn't have parents. They both were, deceased, and she was dealing with the son that was on the spectrum that was nonverbal, right? So she had a lot of, she didn't really have anybody in her life like that, so. Okay, so as far as the forced labor is concerned, so I said that Diddy was rocking back and forth. He kind of was rocking back and forth today. It was weird today. I don't know if I was just seeing more because I was in the main courtroom or what, but but it was just real crazy today. So the forced labor, Mark Agnifilo said that Mia loved working for Mr. Combs and basically, wanted to end it all when she found out that she lost her job. And she had feelings of admiration for Diddy. And he also talks about, remember the video that they showed? Remember the video that they showed of Mia when she sang that happy birthday thing? He brought that up, and because during the whole, Mia's testimony, okay, she was very, very, very much, she did not make eye contact with anybody at all. I watched her whole thing. I was in the overflow room for that particular piece of testimony, and she would be playing with her fingers and just kind of like looking down and stuff like that. And whenever something came up as far as like, any essay or anything like that came up, she was like really, really like real, talking real, real low, like filling with her fingers, looking down. Like she did not make eye contact with anybody. And Mark Agnifilo brought up the video where she was wishing Diddy like a happy birthday and stuff like that. And in the video, she's real animated, like, hey, happy birthday and stuff. So Mark Agnifilo basically is like, no, like that's her real persona, not the quiet person that you saw testifying. That video where she was like, yeah, whatever, that's her real persona. Okay. She had feelings of admiration for Mr. Combs. And this is another thing that he said, okay? He said, okay, I can't keep up with the chat over here on TikTok. I don't know who's lying about what, but all right, let me just keep going. So one of the things that was discussed was that Diddy used to threaten Mia, right? Because remember, he's accused of, SA with Mia on multiple occasions, okay? So one of the things that he threatened Mia was, like, if you don't do XYZ, I'm going to tell Cassie. So basically, what Mark Agnifilo is saying is like, why would that be a threat? Like, why would he threaten that? Like, threaten to tell Cassie anything? Like, he would basically not really want Cassie to know anything. You understand what I'm saying? So this is something that's going to be addressed later on by the prosecution's rebuttal. All right. He's not going to get charged for everything, but he's going to be charged, but he's not getting a lot. A lot of people do feel that way, Bridget. A lot of people do feel that way, that he might not be charged on some things, but definitely going to be charged on other things. I can tell you that if you want to know my opinion, I don't think he's not going home. He's just not going home. Unless it's a hung jury, he's not going home. That's my personal opinion. He's not going home. So when they say, whatever whatever the verdict is, I don't think it's going to be like no like acquittal all the way across the board or nothing like that. Okay. Okay. So, he also talks about the not about he talks about the video, the happy birthday video, but he also talks about the happy birthday letter. Do you guys remember the letter that that Mia wrote to him? And he reads the letter. Okay, happy birthday, Puff, and it's a lot of you know uh uplifting message and stuff like that. So basically, he's trying to say, if he was so bad to her, why would she write that letter? Why would she write a happy birthday letter? The court artists were doing their thing today. Okay, there were 3 of them in the courthouse today. 3. There were 2 on the right side and 1 on the left, and they had these huge, big, like gigantic, sketch paper, and they were just like doing their thing. So you can I guess Google a little bit later. They should be those photos should be up, but they were in there doing the thing today. He talked about Mr. Combs giving people a home, and he shows a photo of bad boy employees. Okay, and he instructed the jury. He said, "What's the first word that comes to your mind when you look at this photo?" So it's a photo of just everybody, Diddy and Capricorn Clark and Christina, like just everybody, big bad boy family, about at least a good 30 people in this photo. And he says, family should, comes to mind, joy. He said, not a racketeering enterprise. Okay. And he kept referring. So as we go on, he keeps referring to KK as racketeering co-conspirator KK. All right, this is how he's referring to her. Look at the video. Wait, let me see. He said, look at the video. Say it's all this crazy. He almost unalived her. Yes, he used his money and power to get what he wanted from these people. He's definitely not guilty. Domestic violence, yes. Wonder why the jurors didn't have to be put in seclusion. Oh, listen, I wondered that too, but I'm going to tell you the reason why I think that they didn't want to put sequester the jury. Okay, I don't agree with it. I don't agree with any super duper high profile case having jurors not being sequestered. I'm sorry. The reason why they don't like that is for so many different reasons, but one of the main ones is they just don't want to have jurors away from their family for like weeks or even months at a time. And I think that this was something that happened with the OJ case. That OJ case was, 8-9 months? Child, by the time that OJ case was over, I remember they had a party the night before. They literally had a party where they had cocktails and everything. Okay. They had cocktails, and at the end of everything, okay, the jurors found O.J. Simpson not guilty, and a lot of people believe that it was because they were away from their family for so many months. It was just like, child, whatever, not guilty, but I want to just go home, okay? So that's one of the reasons why they don't like to sequester a jury. But I think on a super duper high profile case like this, I think that they should sequester the jury. What do you think? Like, I personally think they should. Okay. Look, I think that anybody who has the resources that this person has, has the opportunity to maybe reach out to a juror. And I'm not saying that he definitely did. I'm just saying that anything is possible. And me personally, I just wouldn't trust it, period. Okay. At this point, he's talking about Mia having these, feelings of admiration towards Diddy. it almost sounded like he was crying a little bit. And I put in parentheses, is this ninja crying? Like his voice, it seemed like it kind of cracked a little bit. And I was just like, bro, you're doing a little bit, you're doing a lot right now. So anyway, so he said that the words that come to mind, family, joy, not a racketeering enterprise. And at this moment, I'm noticing the vibe between him and the jury. And, it seems like he's kind of, in the beginning, it was a little choppy, but he, at this point, he's kind of getting his stride. He's walking back and forth. He did say in the very beginning of his closing arguments that, the court reporter and other people are going to get a little bit pissed off because he's going to be walking back and forth. And there's going to be times that you're not going to really be able to hear him because the mic is in one spot. Personally, if I was him, I would have taken the mic, took it off, and I would have just walked around with the mic. Okay. But I guess he couldn't do that. So, but he was vibing and, he was flowing. And I was thinking to myself, like, if the prosecution didn't get the last word, if the prosecution didn't get a chance to rebut after like the way he was kind of like flowing and vibing, I felt like I feel like the prosecution would have been in some trouble. Okay. I really, really do believe that. All right. That's what I was feeling in that moment. I made a notation of that. All right. So let's go. Let's keep it moving. So he did say that Diddy had a substance issues. Okay. And he said that the personal assistants and the staff and stuff like that, they got substances and stuff like that very, very rarely. He said 1% of the time. Okay. You said Diddy was thanking the judge, was him trying to get on the judge's good side. Yeah, because remember, he was reprimanded for making facial expressions and looking at the jury and nodding and doing all kinds of stuff. And I saw him looking in the direction of the jury when I was in the overflow room. Okay. But he was reprimanded for doing that. And he stopped doing that. Like he doesn't do that anymore. And then when the judge asked him how he was doing the other day, remember when the judge asked him, are you going to testify? And he said, he's basically told the judge, no, I'm not going to testify. And he told the judge, you're doing a great job. He told the judge that the judge was doing a great job, child. Okay. He said, yeah, trying to intimidate people. Yeah, absolutely. Look, here's the thing. This is a person who is not accustomed to having to listen to anybody. Okay. Can you imagine somebody who basically used to have somebody literally, according to court testimony, had somebody to carry his chapstick and water for him, right? And was just next to him all the time. He had a butler who used to be with him all the time. Remember, and even back in the day, he had Farnsworth, Bentley, and these people. This person got to sit there and listen to the judge like reprimand him. I know he didn't like that. Okay. I know he did not like that. All women need to help each other. I agree, Zoe. I do agree that women need to help each other. So as far as the sex trafficking, right? He basically said, look, they were, people who were in the lifestyle. I got to be careful with the words I'm using. And he said that, their lives became one. And he brings up the Kid Cudi situation. He said, basically, where he was just like, yeah, remember I said earlier, he talked about how he played, how Cassie played them both. And he said that Cassie was messing around with him and she was messing around with Michael B. Jordan. And he said that Michael B. Jordan was one of the most handsome men in the world. And he said, remember when she was asked, who would you date? Who are you going to date? And she said, well, there's nobody else that I could date because Jay-Z is taken, right? So here's the thing. Cassie, someone did testify that Cassie said that. But here's the thing, okay? I do not believe, my personal opinion is, I don't think that Cassie was saying that because of the reason why people think that she said that. I think that she was saying that because anyone else who she was messing around with, Diddy was powerful enough to intimidate that person, okay? So case in point, when she was messing around with Kid Cudi, look what happened, okay? With his car and all of that stuff like that. So the only other person that she could date safely would be someone like a Jay-Z, because he's like untouchable. You understand what I'm saying? I personally believe that is what she meant by that. Not anything like, oh, she would be trying to take Jay-Z from Beyonce or something nefarious like that. That is, in my opinion, what she meant by that. Okay. I could be wrong, but I doubt it. All right. Now something else I think that was kind of important and interesting that Mark Agnifilo said. He said that if you didn't want that lifestyle initially, you could come to want it. Okay. He then proceeds to read very explicit text messages. You know, one of the text messages, she talks about how her, you know, her feline is so hot and stuff like that. I'm not going to get into that because that will definitely get me kicked off. Yeah, and Diddy wouldn't be able to do anything to a Jay because he's just as powerful. Exactly. That's my point. Okay. That's my point. And I truly believe that's what she meant by that. Okay. So now he gets into showing the video at the hotel, the CNN video. Okay. And you know, I throughout the course of this trial, both the defense and the prosecution showed this video so many times. I was thinking that the defense showed that video to kind of just like numb people to it or whatever, but no, there, each time that video gets played or each time the video comes up on the monitor, it's tense and people are just like, oh God, not this one again. Like, you never get numb to seeing that. I don't think anybody gets numb to seeing that video. Sorry. You could see that video 800 times, and each time the video pops up and you see him come out like, what? I don't want to laugh. It's not funny. It's really, really not funny. But he just kind of like comes. That's like a horror movie. Like, each time you know what's gonna happen, but you're still like, oh my God, please run. Like, you never get used to seeing that video. I don't know why they keep showing this video. But anyway, he brought the video back up again now in these closing arguments, and he's trying to show the same thing. Because remember, in the beginning of the the case, the defense tried to say that Cassie was trying to steal Diddy's phone. They weren't having an FO. She was trying to steal his phone. That was the whole reason why they were having that. That's the reason why he put hands and feet on her, was because she was trying to steal his phone, child. So he's back to that now. Okay. He's back to that. So, basically, okay, so he rewinds things back and forth, and he's like, well, look what's in his right hand in this moment as he's walking down the hallway, and as you can see, you know, it's obvious like that it's the phone, and it stopped for a little bit because it's the video goes by motion sensor and this, that, and the third, and it's the phone, and he's just trying to get back the phone. Like, he's still going with this. Okay. Anyway, so he talks about the civil suit, right? And he basically says that, remember, in the civil suit, she alleged that Diddy, essayed her. Okay. Do I think that he should spend the rest of his life, incarcerated? Me personally, no, I don't think that he should. But I do believe that he deserves some type of time. But the rest of his life, no, I don't think so. I don't personally believe that he should. Okay. But I'm going to get more into that. He said, I do, but I don't believe he could be. I don't believe he could be. Okay. So now he gets into this, essay situation, and he basically says that he doesn't believe that she was essayed at all, because in the civil case, Cassie said that this incident or the alleged incident happened in 1 month, and in the criminal proceedings, she testified that it happened in a different month. And he basically tried to say that, remember, there was a FaceTime that she received, and she was in the middle of having relations, right, with Diddy, and she got a FaceTime from her now current husband. So basically, to cover up the fact that she, got this FaceTime and was messing with him, she had to stay with the lie that she was SA'd. She had to keep up with that lie to her husband because of that whole situation with the FaceTime. Nobody's talking about the fact that everyone is gross and you already know the woman was clout chasers. Cassie saw him 3 times once she got with Alex. Okay? August, September, and October. Okay? So this is what Mark Agnifilo is saying, and he basically said that he just doesn't believe that she was SA'd. And then remember, look, when you're giving closing arguments, you could say anything you want for the not anything you want, but you have a lot of leeway to say a lot of stuff. So you can say stuff like, yeah, I think she was lying about that. You can say that during closing arguments, but you can't say everything. And I'm gonna show you how you can't say anything you want, because it was a major thing that Mark Agnifilo said during these closing arguments today, that child, they ended the court ended up having to walk that back. Okay. So, but he basically was like, yeah, she was, just not being truthful about that. And she just wasn't SA'd. Okay. If you're not following me on TikTok, give me a follow, please. I'm trying to get to 2K today. Hopefully that would be fantastic. All right. So okay, so remember when Capricorn Clark was talking about Cassie and basically said that she was like a studio musician, and everybody kind of was interpreting that as light shade, honey. Okay. But I didn't really interpret it that as shade. I think that you could make the argument that she was more of a studio musician, right? She didn't have the strongest voice. I think that she absolutely did benefit from, a lot of production and stuff like that with her work. And I think that that's a fair assessment. Nothing shady about that. But Mark Agnifilo definitely brings that up. Okay. And he says that, Cassie was going to do a tour in New Zealand and Australia, but the lawsuit kind of like, put the kibosh on that, trying to say that she has no talent but was beautiful. Yes, she did say that. Okay. So when Cassie was testifying, she said that she didn't do the concert, the tour, because of the way that she chose to let everybody know what happened, and with the civil case, and there was a tremendous amount of backlash, and it was just too much for her to get herself together, to get everybody together, her whole production team, and her whole everything. The tour, takes a lot to go on tour, right? So she just wasn't in the headspace to get it done. So they canceled the tour. But Mark Agnifilo is saying that she didn't do the tour because she, got a whole bunch of money. Okay. So now he stops talking about Cassie, and he starts talking about Jane. Okay. Now he says that Jane is a completely different story. Okay. And he basically embraces that very, very early on. Because remember, with Cassie, she was super young when they met. What was she, about 19? When they started like really linking up, she was like in like 21 or something like that. So, you could make the argument that she was very, very young, very, very impressionable. Whereas Jane was considerably older than Cassie was, right? And he basically said Jane is a different, she's different. And she was the type of person who liked posting on, IG. She liked trips. And, it was very much giving, what am I getting out of this that the world can see? Okay. And, she felt a certain type of way when she would see people like Young Miami and other people being posted and stuff like that. And she didn't really she couldn't post them. Okay. All right. So there was another little level of shade, honey, that that Mark Agnifilo said, but I'm going to go into that in a second. So basically what Agnifilo kind of gets into now is the fact that, not the fact, but he insinuates that Jane regretted the FOs, but she wasn't forced in any way to participate in these FOs. Okay. And he said that the bottom line was that she agreed to it. listen to what he said here. He said that Jane has a crappy lawyer who couldn't get any more money from her child's father, and Diddy was the only one who was really doing the right thing. And even after testifying in a racketeering trial, he's paying for her, still currently paying for her lawyer, and paying for her house. This is what Mark Agnifilo said. Like quote, like he said that she has a crappy lawyer. And there were some jury members that were laughing at that joke, and definitely Miss Mamas that I mentioned earlier was one of the ones that was laughing and smirking at that. Okay. Um, he talked about I'm not sure with the names, but now it's some of these girls from the young girl group he had. No, 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 none of that I'm talking about right now. I talked about Cassie earlier, so remember that was his ex-girlfriend, right? And then right now I'm talking about Jane, who was another ex-girlfriend. Okay, rest in peace, Big Wolf, free Diddy. Okay, um, old enough to drive, drink, and go to war. Okay, so he talked about Jane. Remember in the testimony when Jane talked about buying Diddy a TV, one of those, one of those TVs that you can kind of like roll around. And because Diddy liked to do certain things in another room while Jane and whoever was in a different room. Okay. But she said that he could use that for that, or uh, they could use that monitor to watch porn that they made themselves. Okay. So Mark Agnifilo was basically like, how are you going to say that you bought a monitor so y'all could do less corn? Like, basically, like, where they do that at? Like, that doesn't make any kind of sense. Like, not sure how that would work. Because remember, Jane testified that she bought that so they could watch stuff, so she could basically not do the freak offs as the FOs as often. Okay. So they talk about the incident that happened at Jane's house. Remember the physical altercation that happened at Jane's house. So he said Jane inexplicably slams Diddy's, onto the counter. And he basically accuses her of trying to get a rise out of him, because this is after Cassie's lawsuit. So he's trying to say that she tried to start a fight with him so that she could get bruises and get money. This is what Mark Agnifilo is basically saying. Okay. And remember, during the altercation, she does this, and then Diddy, they get into this physical altercation. She runs into the closet and she changes into a dress. And he's like, she was somebody who was an avid, exerciser. Why would she go into the closet and change into a dress if she's trying to get away from him? Why would she do that? So she changes into a dress, and he was like, why didn't she change into like sweats or something like that? It doesn't make sense. And he says, and it doesn't make sense to you either. And Miss Mama and a couple of them was definitely laughing at that. And remember, there was she posted photos that said bestie, me and the bestie, take that inside. He basically said that those photos were there to document her injuries. So remember, after the incident that happened, the physical altercation at her house, this is a couple of days later, and they talked about Jane taking photos of like, romantic photos of like wine and champagne glasses and stuff like that. And it's just like a nice romantic evening. And she takes a photo of her and Diddy, and she's like besties, but you could see, like, I didn't see the photos, but the jurors had seen the photos. There was a lot of stuff during Jane's testimony that was either just redacted or just not shown to the public. But in the photos, allegedly there are, marks and stuff like that on her face. So Mark Agnifilo is basically trying to imply that she started the fight with him and then took those photos to document the evidence so she could have a Cassie lawsuit too. So this part was real and interesting. So he talks about, remember during the testimony when Jane said that she went on a Vegas trip, right? She went on a Vegas trip with a popular rapper, okay? And he said this twice during his closing argument. He said, and you know who that was, okay? I wrote a little note to the person who was sitting next to me, and I said, that's a dual meaning, because during the trip, during the Vegas trip with the famous rapper and his wife, right? They go to a party, and there's like an after party at a hotel, and Anton, which is one of the escorts, is basically having relations with a woman, and everybody's just watching him have this relationship with the woman. And people were speculating as to who the famous rapper and the wife was. Put in the chat who it is. Put in the chat who the famous rapper was. Okay. And as Mark Agnifilo was talking, he's like, you know who that was. Okay. And he's not talking about the escort. Okay. He's not talking about the escort. Yes. Okay. Absolutely. You're right. Okay. Tiny and T.I. Listen, that's T, because it could have been them too, but it wasn't though. It was definitely they were referring to Ye. All right. So remember at the party, at the after party, where people are having relations and stuff like that, I guess Jane was feeling the moment or whatever, and she lifted up her shirt and showed her chest or whatever. And the rapper and the wife inquire about this particular lifestyle, right? But they did admit Diddy. Yes, they did. During the testimony, they did. And even in the closing arguments, Mark Agnifilo didn't deny that Diddy put his hands on her, right? But he basically said that she started it by, because remember, Jane admitted that Diddy was leaning down. He was like at the bar area, or like the dinette area, or whatever. You know what I'm saying? You know how it is. Like you have like the elevated like stools, and he was sitting there, and he leaned down to tie his shoe, and then she took his head and did like that, and basically that kind of like set it off. So Agnifilo accused her of trying to get a rise out of him and start the altercation intentionally. All right. So getting back to this party now. So the rapper and the wife inquire about this lifestyle, and then Jane basically was like, yeah, I know somebody else, and she talks about Cabral, okay, and brings up Cabral to them. All right. I don't remember if they linked up, if Cabral actually linked up with them, but she did. I do remember that she talked about that to the famous rapper and his wife. And in my live earlier, I was talking about, it. This is not the first time we've heard about Ye liking to watch certain things, and the same way that Diddy likes to watch certain things. Not the first time I've heard this. Have you guys heard about that in the chat? Has anybody heard that? This is not the first time that I've heard this at all. Okay. But anyway, so now he's like, so now after that party, okay, remember there was a whole thing that went down with Diddy, okay, and Anton and Jane, because remember, Diddy went through Jane's phone and saw text messages between Anton and Jane. Mark Agnifilo tried to make it look like there was something untoward going on between Jane and Anton on the side, like outside of Diddy, outside of the FO, okay? And he's like, is it a coincidence that Anton came to the house that night? Remember that same night, Anton, Diddy wanted Jane to do the FO after he like put his hands on her and she was like all, bruised up and, whatever. He told her, put a Aliyah swoop over your eye, get yourself together, clean yourself up, and take your tail down to the gate and go let Anton in. Okay. But Mark Agnifilo is trying to make it seem like they had something going on. So he's like, yeah, is it a coincidence that Anton came to the house? Like, is it a coincidence? Is it a coincidence that he came to the house? So he's like, did he prompt it? Did Jane prompt that altercation? And he was like, Diddy was already under investigation. So why was Jane so, violent? Like, why would she pick that time to be so violent? Okay. So at this point now, he's looking at the jury and he's like, look, you guys were chosen because you are good judges of people. Okay. Um, so he's just like, what the what the oh, so this is the other thing he talked about. Remember the woman Dawn, okay, not Dawn Richard, Dawn, who's a psychotherapist that was the expert witness, okay? So he basically talks about the fact that she never, had any type of session, she never interviewed. Why would Diddy be so violent knowing he's under investigation? Right, that's a good question, okay? So the expert witness, who's a psychotherapist, he talks about the fact that she never interviewed Jane or anything like that. She never treated her or anything. I always thought that that was so weird, though. Okay, just really quickly on a quick side note, I'm gonna get back to this. Why is that a thing? Why do lawyers bring that up? She's speaking in general, as any type of expert witness is going to speak in general. And fun fact, that same therapist does work for defense attorneys as well. Okay. And defense witnesses, as a defense suspects and stuff like that as well. And she actually was going to work with one of the lawyers on the defense team, and I think that they didn't end up working together or whatever, but she was supposed to, like, that she works for both sides. She can't treat Cassie because, I mean, that if she was a current patient of Cassie, how is she going to testify? You can't. Like, that's, if she's her patient, then she couldn't testify. So I always thought that was a weird, like, argument, but I guess he thought he ate with that one. So basically he's saying, take whatever the psychotherapist is saying as, with a grain of salt. She's never done anything with Jane. She doesn't really know Jane. Use your own judgment. Okay. And this is the part that was laughable, child. Okay. I do believe that he did a good job today, but this part right here was a little off the wall. So he said that escorts during the course of the trial, okay, were basically saying that they don't have relations, right, for money, okay? And he said those are government witnesses, right? Were those the best that he could come up with? These people who are saying that they don't have relations for money, these are the best that, and there goes Miss Mama Child nodding and smiling, okay? What's that? Oh, okay. Yeah, in a little bit. Okay. All right. So he says that Cowboy for Angels, Cowboys for Angels is the agency where they got the most of the people that were doing these parties, these hotel nights and the Wild King nights and the FOs or whatever. And he said Cowboys for Angels is an ongoing, thriving business, and they're still in business. And I put in parentheses, not for long, right? So he said, if this is P prostitution, how is Cowboys for Angels still around? Because he hasn't been found guilty yet. But let's see. So, and he says that he even talks about when Sean sends text messages to an employee that works at Cowboys for Angels, and he's basically saying, I didn't get what I paid for. Remember that testimony where Diddy is complaining that he didn't get what he paid for? Does anybody see how backwards this whole thing is right there? And the employee says you're paying for time. Okay, so basically Mark Agnifilo is saying that he's not paying for prostitution. He's paying for time. And I put in parentheses, this is a terrible angle, right? Mark Agnifilo says there's no actual evidence of prostitution, okay? And he also talks about, the fact that Sean Combs was indicted by himself, okay? And going back to how could this be racketeering? He was indicted by himself, and he said they keep bringing up KK. Everyone loves KK, right? And he said, show me one piece of evidence that KK is a co-conspirator. All right. The evidence shows that KK was not a co-conspirator, nor was D-Rock, and not charged with any pew-pews, not charged with he wasn't charged with anything relating to that, okay? They talked about the Suge Knight incident. He wasn't charged with anything relating to that. And he also wasn't charged with the situation. Remember, Cassie's ex-best friend that he threw the coat hanger at? He wasn't charged with anything related to that. And he wasn't charged with anything relating to Dawn Richard. Remember the situation with Dawn Richard and the alleged threats? Okay. So he goes into all of this. Okay. And he said that the government says just because no pew pew was shown in an FO doesn't mean that there weren't any. And he basically says that the government didn't have any business even alluding to that or saying anything like that. Okay. They talk about the fact that there was DNA on the Molotov cocktail that was consistent with a female. And he said, at what point do you stop trusting the government? Okay. This is where Mark Agnifilo gets himself into hot water. He says, and I quote, evidence shows that the government targeted Sean Combs. So this is the implication that, after the Cassie lawsuit, these guys wanted to make, I got to do this puzzle piece. Hold on. Okay. These guys wanted to, basically make a case about Sean Combs and like went after him and specifically targeted him. I don't think he should have said that, but anyway, I'm gonna tell you the reason why. Whether he believes it or not, that was a hot, that was a topic of of contention, like a hot topic, back and forth throughout the trial, and they had more than one argument about that particular thing, and neither party, like, it was just a thing that they kept talking about. And the fact that he brought it up during closing arguments, okay. But anyway, so he said, I'm asking you to acquit Sean Combs of all charges and return him to his family. And he said, I thank you all for your time. All right. So that was the end of Mark Agnifilo's closing argument. Okay. So as you guys probably know, and in case you don't know, the prosecution rested their case and they had their closing arguments yesterday. So Mark Agnifilo went today. The prosecution has the burden of proof. So they get to go again. They get to have the last word. They get to have a rebuttal. Okay. Dick Parsons, are you asking me what I think personally? I've said this before, and I'm going to say it again. Do I think he's going to be charged on everything? That's not a definite, but I do think that he'll be charged with. He's going to be found guilty on some things, and I don't think he's going home. Cassie is definitely not a victim. She had two daughters. One name is Frankie, and the other one is Sun. And E.G., I don't know how to pronounce that. He said perish. Who are you saying should perish? Okay. So after he finishes with his closing argument, the jury, they say, okay, we're going to take a little bit of a break. So the jury gets up and they leave. And so everybody in the courtroom has to have a seat. So the prosecution, they're very, very, very upset, really, 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 really upset. And she gets up and she's just like basically talking about, the fact that Mark Agnifilo went there, basically trying to say that, the government just specifically just targeted him, like just went after him like that, just basically like just for no reason. You know what I'm saying? And she was really, really, really upset. She said that she wants the judge to address the jury about this today before the weekend. Okay. Do I think he's going to do time? Yeah, I do think he's going to definitely do some time for sure. He's not going home. This is Slavic. She was like, yeah, I need you to address the jury about this today before the weekend. And Mark Agnifilo was basically like, so, I don't, feigning ignorance. Like, I don't know what you're talking about. Like, I didn't say anything out of pocket. Like, they didn't go back and forth about this before. Anyway, the judge basically tells Mark Agnifilo, like, you were basically out of pocket. Okay, you shouldn't have said that. And like, why would you do that? We've had discussions about this particular thing, and you shouldn't have said that. So when the jury comes back, we're back from the break, blah, blah, blah. The judge basically looks at the jury and says that how they came to the decision to bring charges against Diddy is not your concern. You got to worry about that. Only thing you got to worry about is whether or not the 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 government has proved their case beyond a reasonable doubt. Okay, so the government was able to get that in. Is 25 years fair? I think that's a bit much. I personally think that anything between five to 10 years is a respectable amount of time. And I don't know. I think you got to serve 85% of that with a federal case. Don't quote me. I think so. Let me know in the comments. But I do think that he should get some type of time. But do I think he should spend the rest of his life in jail? No. Now I do think that throughout his life, there were definitely times when he should have been checked. Okay. He should have been checked, but things happened and he became this very, very powerful person. And he's in the situation that he's in right now. So it is what it is. Please give me a follow if you're not following me here on TikTok. If you're following on YouTube or Facebook, please share me in real time. So I wrote a thing about how many what the jury the makeup. I'm not sure who the alternates are, okay, but there are 4 black women, 2 black men, 5 white men, 1 Hispanic woman, 1 Hispanic man, and 1 guy who looks like he is he looks like he is maybe like Mediterranean or something like that, or maybe Middle Eastern, maybe. And then there is a white woman as well on the jury. So again, I'm not sure exactly who are the alternates, but that's what that's the makeup of the jury and the alternates there. Okay. All right. So now we're getting into the prosecution's rebuttal. Okay, so remember, they get to get the last word. And I'm going to tell you right now, it's a good thing that the prosecution, something, Yana, that is a good point. You said no one, or Jana, I don't know if I'm pronouncing your name right. No one knows what really went on in that courtroom or watched the tapes. I know what went on in the courtroom for the most part, with the exception of the stuff that's redacted. And no, I did not watch the tapes, and nobody did watch the tapes. And you're absolutely right. Don't be so quick on less time. You are right about that, because I would bet good money that I think there's a big reason why both parties showed so much of the freak offs, right? I think that a lot of the prosecution probably showed so much of the FO because they wanted to show that there's a huge chunk of footage of these women just completely just out of it, comatose, just looking like they're just out of it. And I think that the defense probably wanted to counter that with probably a lot of footage that shows them, seemingly enjoying what's happening there, right? I think it's just important for everyone to understand that there were copious amounts of substances involved in all of these incidences, okay, on either side. So whichever way you fall, just understand that nobody was in their right frame of mind. Okay. So please don't turn on the AC. No, I love the AC, and I know you like it too, but we don't need the AC right now. It's not cold like that. Go inside. I'm going to be done in about 20 minutes, okay? And Granny will be with you in a little bit, okay? I got you. Give me a little bit. I gave her treats before, and I do this every time before a live, and she still does this. Please go inside. I'll be with you in a little bit. Okay, please behave. I'm sorry you're sad, Kai. I'll be with you in a little bit. So She says this trial is about, in Sean's world, he can't take no for an answer. And he said whether it's lies, putting hands on someone, or etc. He can't take no for an answer. And she, says it. She says, look, the burden of proof lies with the government, and we have met it. And um, she said that uh, the defense tried to insinuate that he didn't pay for these services, and that there was no racketeering involved. And Cassie and Jane and Mia were not, lied to. Okay. But she said that it doesn't pass the laugh test. And a couple of jurors did laugh. Now she did try to be kind of animated or whatever. She did try to be a little animated, which was cute. But some people were kind of like, saying that it didn't really land. I'm going to say this right now, okay? Mark Agnifilo is extremely charismatic. He's, very, very friendly. Um, he's got a sense of humor, a very approachable, very likable person. Even in the courtroom, in the courthouse, if you run into him, getting on the elevator, he definitely will say hello to you, like he knows you or whatever. He's extremely personable. Okay. Um, you know, Maureen Comey and the other one's Slavic, and the other ones, like, they are pretty much more straightforward. Okay. And, they're not like that. But I do not believe that you need to be like that necessarily to get the job done. Okay. To get your point across. I think that if you present your case and you present it clearly in a way that people understand, you don't need to really have people cracking up, dying, laughing when these jurors are absolutely taking copious amounts of notes. And I'm going to just say this really quickly again, in case you're just now joining me. I was in the main courtroom today. This was my first time being in the main courtroom. I was at the courthouse last night at 11:30 at night, and I stayed the night there overnight outside in the street with a blanket, honey. Okay. It was raining. I had an umbrella. It was just a whole lot. It was a lot. But I did make it into the main courtroom. Okay. So it wasn't all for naught. I made it into the main courtroom. I was so happy to make it in there. And I made it in there by the skin of my teeth. Let me tell you something real quick. Okay. Then let me get back to this. Give me like 1 second. So there are supposed to be 14 regular people that get into the main courtroom. And when I say regular people, I mean the public. Okay. Outside of the press. And when I say the press, I mean like CNN, MSNBC, these news outlets, Washington Post, these people. Those people automatically are going to get in. There's like a list of people that automatically are going to get into that main courtroom. There are only 14 members of the public, 3 of which are content creators. And I'm not going to mention their names, but they're content creators that are just permanently on this list of 3 people that automatically get in regardless. So now that cuts down the number from 14 to 11. When I got there last night at 11:30, I was number 9 on the list. Okay. As the time goes on, as the evening progresses, and now we're getting into daytime and daylight and stuff like that, shit starts getting real fugazi. People start popping up out of nowhere. The line sitters are saying, oh, I'm holding this for this person, that person, blah, blah, blah. So somehow I turned from number 9 to number 11. I even ended up getting into it with another girl on the line because it was definitely given that she was trying to skip. And she and I ended up going back and forth to the point where it got kind of ugly, because I was like very, very upset because I had been there from 11 o'clock, like 11:30. And it's like 4 o'clock in the morning, girlfriend, what are you trying to do? Okay. Will I camp out Sunday night for Monday morning? No, I'm not going to do that. The reason why I'm not going to do that is because I was so tired today in the court that I kept dozing off, and I like to take notes and be really like coherent, so I have a clear understanding of what I'm watching, so I can talk about it in a way that I know what I'm talking about. You know what I'm saying? Like, I would love to do it, but I can't. I was just too tired. But I will definitely be there Monday, but I'm going to be in the overflow room. Well, thank you so much. Thank you so much. At London. But look, it was an experience. It was an experience. It was an experience. I'll talk about that a little bit later on in the live, but let me get this info out. And then if you guys want to still chill with me, we'll talk about that. So okay. So let's move it forward. So she talks about how the defense tried to make it look like that the people that were providing these services weren't prostitutes, okay, that they were just entertainers, okay. And she was like, how are you going to say that they were just entertainers when the escorts who couldn't perform didn't get paid a lot, right? Either they didn't get paid a lot or they didn't get paid at all, and the ones who could perform got thousands of dollars. Like, literally, some of these people were getting 5 bands, racks, whatever, for an FO. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine that? Okay. So what you mean? Like, what do you mean? So she said, what matters is what was in the defendant's mind. He intended to pay for these services across state lines, I might add. Okay. And then she was a little sarcastic here. She kind of ate with this one though. I kind of like chuckled a little bit, and I drew a little bit of attention to myself, which is not a good idea because in the main courtroom they're a little stricter than in the overflow room, so you can't be laughing and stuff like that. But I thought she kind of ate with this one a little bit. She said, "Well, maybe they would have done it for free in front of a masked masturbating celebrity." A couple of other people chuckled too, right? But it's absurd. You're not doing that for free, okay? So she basically talks about racketeering, as it relates to KK, the security team, and the assistants, and it was basically a hierarchy, right? So you had Diddy at the very, very top, and then you had KK, and then you had the security team, and then you had the assistants, and everybody worked, in tandem to make sure that these illicit activities were completed, and everybody worked together and everybody knew what was going on. Because part of what the defense was trying to say is that KK didn't no, you're right, doll number 7. Diddy texted an escort manager saying the guy couldn't even perform. The manager was like, but you paid for his time, right? right. Okay. So, but I'm going to tell you about that in a second, okay? Because why would you even say that he couldn't perform? Couldn't perform what? You understand what I'm saying? So they were all in on it. Part of what the defense was trying to say is that nobody knew what was going on, but that's not true because there were text messages that showed that KK, basically asked, so is tonight like a wild flow night? I mean, a wild king night, or is this just a Gucci bag night, right? What's a wild king night? We know what a wild king night was, right? It sounds like the Playboy Mansion. And I'm going to say something about the Playboy Mansion. I wish that we could go back in time and, some of the nasty things that we found out that happened at the Playboy Mansion and with other celebrities back in the day. I really wish that we could go back in time and hold certain people accountable that were, that harmed certain people. I'm going to leave it there because I got to watch my language. But unfortunately, we can't. But yes, I will definitely admit that the stuff that went on in the Playboy Mansion was disgusting. Absolutely disgusting. And as the years progress, we find out even more and more and more. Absolutely disgusting. So, nobody gets a pass, especially not over here on my side. Nobody gets a pass or anything like that. Unfortunately, we cannot go back in time. Okay. But at the end of the day, when you know better, you do better. We know now that the things that were happening back then should not have been happening. Shouldn't have been happening. Underage women and, substances and, you know, all of that shouldn't have been happening. So we know better now. So we're going to try to make sure that we do better now in this day and age. Um, she basically said that Sean gets what he wants when he wants it, and his staff made that happen. And she said that, she thinks it's interesting that the defense likes to bring up the fact that certain people didn't testify, right? When everyone was available to testify for both parties, okay? And they didn't even call any witnesses. Remember, they didn't call any witnesses. The defense didn't call any witnesses. Now, don't get me wrong, they didn't have to. They didn't have to call any witnesses because, again, the burden of proof lies with the prosecution. So they didn't have to call any witnesses, and they didn't. They showed 20 minutes of text messages and a couple of exhibits, and that was the end of that. Okay. Now, she talked about the staff playing both sides. So the staff would appease Diddy, and then they would try to make it seem like they were on either Jane or Cassie's side, right? She talked about numerous times that Cassie would complain about, physical things, right? Jane complained about the blackmail with the tapes and stuff like that. And, these are messages that are documented through text messages and stuff like that. And KK was well aware of everything that was going on and did what she could to smooth things over, right? She said that they used money from the company for unlawful purposes to further the enterprise. She said, even though the company is a lawful company, it still doesn't matter. It still falls under racketeering. Okay. So they talk about the kidnapping, and Capricorn's testimony was corroborated by Kid Cudi, and Capricorn Clark was forced to go over to Kid Cudi's house. She didn't want to go. Agnifilo says that Sean is a hands and fist type of guy. She said, sure, with his girlfriends, but when he's going up against a man, he needs a pew pew. This is what prosecution said. Okay. Said that Cassie didn't want to go to a hotel after the foot stomping in the car, because remember, he did that with his foot basically to her face, child, in the car, remember? And her face was looking real crazy. So what ended up happening is he sent her to a hotel. She wanted to go to her mother. She ended up going to the hotel, and the security would visit her and kind of like, make sure that she didn't leave and go to the mother. Okay. Did there come a time when Sean said that he would explode, the Kid Cudi's car? And she said, yes, that there was testimony to that, where Cassie said that he was going to do that. Okay. They talk about the glove that was in the car. And she basically was like, why is that glove such a big deal? Because remember, Mark Agnifilo brought up that situation with the glove, right? Remember, there was one glove in the car. The Molotov cocktail was put into the center of the car, right? Into the center of they sliced a thing, and they in the like the vinyl or whatever that material is, and dropped it in the middle of the car. Okay. The glove was found like further away from where the Molotov cocktail was. She said that Kid Cudi told law enforcement that was his glove. So why is the defense talking about why the glove was not, tested for DNA when he said it was his glove? And who's dropping a glove through the hole in the ceiling? Who's doing that? She was just like, that doesn't make any type of sense I don't know, she was just like, why they keep talking about that? That doesn't make any sense. And he literally said it's his glove. Okay. And so she said that as it relates to the situation with the CNN, video, remember the guy Eddie Garcia, right? She said that he was contractually bound not to report because Mark Agnifilo, said time and time again, anytime these things happened, law enforcement wasn't called. So he was trying to make it look like law enforcement wasn't called only because Cassie, didn't want to call law enforcement or whatever. But once they entered into that, bribery situation where he signed that NDA, he was not, he was contractually bound to not report, but he wasn't contractually bound to speak with law enforcement if they approached him. Okay. She said that employees had dual purposes. All right. And again, like I said a few minutes ago, the dual purposes were to get Sean whatever he wanted and also to pretend like they were protecting, Cassie and Jane and stuff like that. She said that KK was Sean's right hand woman. She lived with him. She texted from his phone. Okay. Check my DM right quick. I don't know how to do that, right?
Don't do it.
I don't know how to do that while I'm on live without messing anything up. Okay. So, but I will check it a little bit later on. Okay. Oh, your hair looks cute.
Oh, thank you. I'm just gonna do it this way.
Okay.
I don't want to take you off.
No, it looks really cute. So she said that she texted from his phone. She said that she arranged substance purchases, right? And she said that she knew about the bribery and she knew about the cowboy escorts and stuff like that. Okay. Doll number 7. I don't want to, I told you, I don't know. Listen, I'm not like very adept. Leave a message on my picture. Okay. Okay. Thank you, dear. All right. But I'm I don't want to mess up this live here. But I definitely will check your message for sure when I'm done. Okay. Um, so yeah, KK knew about the cowboy and the escorts. And she was also aware. She said that in September, KK knew that Jane didn't want to do FOs anymore, and she also knew that Diddy was blackmailing her. Right? She said that KK is a co-conspirator and makes the defendant guilty on count 1, and that makes the defendant guilty on count 1. Listen to me. This is the second time that I'm hearing the prosecution refer to KK as a co-conspirator. That's not a mistake. I've said this a million times, and I'm going to say it again. I believe that if the prosecution gets the results that they're looking for, if they're able to get him on that racketeering, then KK's next, and a couple of other people in, that work for Bad Boy. I think what's his name, D-Rock and Fahim and a couple of these people, absolutely. But they can only do it if they get him on the racketeering, because that's the whole thing. Because how is it racketeering? You can't get him on racketeering. How could KK, how are you going to take down KK? You know what I'm saying? People were asking why they didn't speak. It has something to do with what they have. Okay. Who is KK? KK is Christina Coram. That's his assistant. And she said that as far as substances, right, being referred to as distribution, you don't have to sell substances to somebody. Giving them to someone, right, is also distribution as well. Okay. Okay, so she said that the defense wants to make it look like, a pew pew is something that you use, that you put bullets in and use to, you know, um SHOOT someone. And I got to be real careful here, because I got kicked off of TikTok a million times just for saying like the wrong word on a live. So I don't want to get kicked off, but that's what it is. Okay. So the defense was really, really trying. Let me tell you something. Mark Agnifilo said that when he told the jurors that you kind of have to just like, disconnect from the fact that you're watching, PORN when you're watching these FOs, and just look at the beauty of the FOs. And he said that, he said, what about, he was talking about the decorations. He was like, when you watch those videos, he said, you saw, you heard music from Usher and you heard music from some other artist, he said. And he said, the rooms were decorated beautifully, and there was romantic lighting, and he said that everybody was just having a good time. And so the prosecutor just now, when she was giving her rebuttal, she was just like, you know he would like you to he said he would like you to think that everybody just enjoyed everything, that these women enjoyed everything. And I'm going to say this, I do believe that in the very beginning, when these women were involved with Diddy, right? I think that they probably thought that, hey, maybe this is just going to be a thing that we do every once in a while, right? We're going to take a little, we're going to just, take a little E. We're going to take a little, rhymes with Holly, and we're going to just, get a little romantic and maybe have somebody else come along and join us or whatever. And it's, we'll just do this once in a while. I do believe that this is what they probably thought in the beginning. But one of the things that the prosecutor said today was that, um, you know, nobody wants relations for hours and hours and hours and hours and hours on end, right? In the same position, to the point where you're sore and, you have literal SORES in your mouth from friction and constant UTIs and yeast and, infections and stuff like that. Like, nobody wants that, right? That's not, that's not sexy. Okay. Um, She said that Cassie already got paid, so there is no reason for her to lie. She already reached a settlement, right? And if it was all a lie for money, why sit on the stand and get humiliated for 4 days with everybody watching her FOs, reading, and her having to read her those text messages, where those explicit text messages and stuff like that. Like, she was like, what would be the reason for her to sit up there and get humiliated like that when she already got money? And she said that Mia already, settled with Diddy in mediation, right? There's no lawsuit coming, or anything like that. So what was her reason for getting up there? And she basically said that they didn't have anything extra to gain. Okay. She said that the reason why uh, Diddy didn't want to talk to Cassie about, of the reason why Diddy would blackmail Mia about the alleged SA, right? He used to say, well, if you don't do XYZ, I'm gonna let Cassie know that me and you did whatever. And the reason why he would do that is basically to keep her under his control. And she basically said he was lying about doing that, because there's no way that he was going to be honest about that. He would have never told Cassie that he was doing this with her. Okay, but Mia didn't know that. Okay, this is what the prosecution is saying. Um, so going back to the situation, the altercation with Jane, in going back to the situation with Jane in her apartment, right? Remember, Mark Agnafilo tried to say that she was looking for her own little Cassie lawsuit, right? And she said, if she was trying to get, you know, hands put on her, where's the lawsuit, right? She said that the incentive would probably be to lie for him, considering the fact that he's still paying for her rent and her lawyer. Like, currently, he's still paying for that right now. Okay. She said that these women are still all grappling with the trauma that they've experienced, and they're all in different, you know, they're in different spaces, they're in different levels of dealing with what they've gone through. Okay. And she said that finding meaning and happiness during trauma does not erase what happened. Okay. She said jealousy is not an excuse for trafficking. So basically, because Mark Agnafilo was like, oh, Jane was upset with Young Miami, was upset because he was posting Young Miami, And she basically was like, so what? So what if she was jealous? Okay. And she was like, the more that she saw other women not going through hours and days of this sort of thing, the more she realized that she was just getting played. Okay. Um, she said that choosing the escort was a way to take control over her body. Because remember, Jane testified that there was a point where it seemed like Diddy was just getting these people off of people were that Diddy was getting people off of just like Skid Row. Do you remember when she was testifying that there was just like some like random sloppy hairy ninja who was just there sweating and slobbering and it's not funny, child. Let me not laugh at that. That is not. I'm just making myself laugh with the way I'm saying it. But he was basically just slobbering and sweating all over the place, and she couldn't go through with it. So I guess, she was just like, child, let me find somebody that we can just do this with on a regular basis. If we're gonna have to be doing this, it might as well be with somebody who, showered this morning, child. So this is the part where I made a little notation to myself that the kids look awkward listening to the hotel video talk, right? So Christian, um, Christian, oh, thank you, Zelda. Yeah, no problem. Christian definitely has lately been looking like this is taking its toll on him. I said in another a live earlier. I don't know. I don't follow any of the his kids online or anything like that. So they could very well be posting fun stuff. But from what I have seen, Christian has like, I don't want to use the word deteriorating because that's just going to make it seem a little hyperbolic, and it's not like that. But he just does not look like himself at all. Like he looks super sad. He just doesn't really look like he's taking really good care of himself at all. And he looks visibly very, very just not happy, very, very extremely sad. There was a point where he just kind of like had his head down completely during the testimony. That was just so awkward to watch. And then the young girls, they would kind of be looking like, I guess, down at them, at, they're looking down, or they would glance at each other from time to time. That's super hard to look at. Listen, I just don't know why. I understand why he has them there, because it they have to seem like it's a united front. Mama Combs is there, and the ex-girlfriend is the other kid's mother, the other older daughter's mother is there, and Misa Hilton was there yesterday, and blah blah blah. But I would not want my offspring up in there listening to a lot of that testimony. Was yes, almost distraught. Definitely looked like that. Definitely. It's one thing to talk about stuff or whatever, but to like see that in real time, and it's just very, very disturbing. You got to watch what you're doing when you have kids and stuff like that. You got to think about them. It's not just about you. It's not just about you. So, but anyway, um the Cassie, okay, so they talked about the situation that happened with the hotel. Okay, now remember, those kids lost their mom, now him. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what's happening. It's very, very sad, very, very sad. And it's anyway. The other two sons, though, they definitely look a little bit better. Justin always looks upbeat and positive. He always has a smile on his face, and he definitely looks more chipper and cheerful. Quincy, um, he's a little bit more subdued, but not in like the deeply depressed way that Christian is looking. He's just more quiet. You know, what I'm saying? Not as upbeat. And what I'm saying. Um, so, but yeah. So remember when Mark Agnafilo, and remember in the beginning when they were giving opening arguments, right? Mark Agnafilo basically was saying that that wasn't an FO at the hotel. Um, what's her name? Cassie had Diddy's phone, and that's why he was chasing her. Okay, which I never understood that angle. Isn't that worse? Like you stopping somebody out because they took your phone? Like that's not good either. Like, what? Okay. I never understood that, honey, but she basically was showing that, the fact that it was an FO, and she did get hands put on her during the FO, was corroborated by Cassie and the escort, and it's on tape, child. The VIOLENCE, right, was to keep Cassie compliant and obedient, and no was never an option. The videos were a small part of what was happening. The prosecution showed, Christian be out all night with his girlfriend. Okay, like I said, I don't follow those kids. I don't follow them on social media. So like I said, they could very well be posting fun posts, but from what I could see, it is what it is. So I mean, shout out to him. I hope he's enjoying life. Look, have been accusations made against these the sons. Hopefully, these he's not they're not doing crazy ridiculous stuff. I hope not. I hope not. Please, I hope not. Okay. I think who's behind some of these lawsuits? Maybe Tony Busby or whatever. Child, I stopped trusting him after that 13-year-old, the girl who's claimed she was 13 years old, um, when Jay-Z and Diddy, did whatever after the awards or whatever. I'm not saying that everything he's saying all the time isn't truthful, but like when you get caught out there like that, that's a bad look. And I'm going to say this really quickly, and I'm going to continue with this because we're almost done here. I can't stand to hear about these lawsuits, and then we find out that people are full of it. Like, can people stop doing that, please? Like, this is not funny. Like, it's not funny. It's not funny. It's not funny. It's already challenging enough for people who stuff really happened to. It's really already challenging enough for them to come forward and try to get a little compensation or a little justice or a little something to make them feel a little bit better or whatever, or even come out and seek criminal charges, right? It's challenging enough. Then we have this freaking bozo, these ambulance chasers out here making up stories. The girl, she was like, oh yeah, she was 13, this, that, and the third, and she's on the interview with, what is it, whatever, Good Morning America, whoever it was, and she's sitting up there. Please stop doing that. Like, please. This is ridiculous. This is ridiculous. Okay. Look, Jay-Z, a lot of people tied Diddy to Jay-Z. They've been very close throughout the years. I don't put anything past anybody. I'm not going to put nothing on somebody. Okay. That being said, um, people already were, linking the two of them together. So it was just like, it was a good thing that Jay-Z came out so forcefully. Okay. Now look, going forward, it remains to be seen what's going to happen with some of these celebrities. Who knows, child? Okay. Again, I don't put anything past anybody. I'm not putting on a cape for anybody. I'm not a stan. I'm not I'm not in a bee. I'm not in the hive. I'm not any of that at all. Okay. But I also don't like to see people lied on either. That's corny. That's not helpful. That's not helping anybody. That's ridiculous to me. That was hard for those kids to listen about their father. It was. Um, Even in the beginning when the twins came, and they were there was a situation that was talking about the golden showers and stuff like that, right? With the FO with Cassie, that testimony, that remember Cassie's testimony in the beginning was horrific. The two of them got up and left out of the courtroom when they were talking about the golden showers and stuff like that. Okay. And now it's so funny because I was there today at the courthouse, and I was trying to get a little bit of footage. I was on live on TikTok, and I was trying to get some footage of the the kids and them coming out. So I did, but I couldn't see myself. I just kind of like had my phone up. You know how you put your phone high up so the people who are watching can see, but I couldn't really see. But I heard that one of the girls was crying today. Is that true? I didn't see it, but I heard that one of the twins was crying as she was leaving the courthouse. I don't want to spread any type of fake news, child. Oh, she was crying. Okay, so that wasn't fake. All right. Because I see, you know how you see things in passing, you don't ever know what to believe nowadays. Oh my God, that's so sad. Okay. That is so damn sad. All right, so let's keep this going. Um, so yeah, she said that the videos were a small part of what was happening. Basically, there's a lot more video, a lot more footage, a lot more crazy stuff, and she did. The jury was exposed to just a teeny piece of the years and years and years of stuff that was going on. Okay, and she said that Agnifilio says that Cassie won the prize, and she was like, basically like, what prize was that? Like, basically being, you know, treated poorly and humiliated in public and stuff like that. Was that the prize? I guess 30 million is whatever. Cassie, has testified that if she would give back those coins if she could just like take back all them FOs with them, literally hundreds of men. So anyway, um, Dr. Hughes, the same one that remember Mark Agnifilo, the girl who was not a twin, cried the other day. Okay, 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 okay. Yes, Marlene, outside the courthouse was crazy today. It was a madhouse. I've seen it crazy, but today I think was like the craziest I've seen it in person. Okay. It was the craziest I've seen it in person today. So remember, Mark Agnifilo was basically trying to discredit um, Dr. Hughes, the woman Dawn, right? That's the psychotherapist, and he basically was telling the jury, just come draw your own conclusion. This woman has never examined, any of these women and this, that, and the third, or whatever. She said that Dr. Hughes says that love is what keeps a victim in an abusive relationship. Okay. Um, and that, I mean, that's true, right? When you're in a situation like that, um, I'm going to say in a second, Slim Goody, what, when you're in a situation like that, love is what keeps you in the relationship. You're not constantly being, um, have hands put on you 24 hours a day, 100% of the time. Most of the time, you're probably having a great time, doing whatever. It's the, the 10% of the time. And ironically enough, I don't know if you guys remember, there was an interview that Diddy did on the Breakfast Club where he was talking about, he said, 25% of the time I'm basically going to drive you nuts, and the other 75% of the time you're going to have a great time with me. This was way before we knew of any type of FOs or anything like that, and I always thought that that was a weird thing to admit. And I can remember watching the video at the time thinking like, that's not a flex, sir. Like, that's not that, I didn't, that wasn't cool. Yeah, so what was going on outside the courthouse today, it was just like tons of people. And I was saying earlier today that it'll be interesting to see what happens with either verdict. If he's acquitted on all the charges somehow, some way, or if he's found guilty on some or all of the charges, it'll be interesting to see what happens. It'll be interesting to see what happens if he is found guilty on some or all of these charges. What the sentencing will be. That's going to be a whole nother circus, child. So there are a lot more people showing up to the courthouse. A lot more people. If you're not following me here, give me a follow. I'm trying to get up to 2K um over here. Also, please give me a follow on my YouTube. It's starving. It's pathetic. Like, I should have started doing this a long time ago, but anyway, my YouTube is Shanoa Can Talk. So it's CHENOA, right? CANTALK. So that's on YouTube. Also, like, videos like this I automatically upload them to my YouTube and also my Facebook, because with TikTok, I still haven't figured out how do you save these lives on here. I don't know how to do that. So if you missed this is a relatively long video, but if you missed this, you can go over to YouTube and it'll be there. It's also on my Facebook too. My Facebook is Shanoa Lawrence, CHENOA LAURENCIN. Okay. So yeah, that's pretty much it. Do you guys have any questions about what happened? You have any questions about what happened? Uh Going forward, um yeah, it was crazy outside. Going forward, so this is what was supposed to happen today. What was supposed to happen was Um, the defense, was gave their closing argument, and the prosecution was supposed to give the rebuttal. They were supposed to get the charges today, right? The jury was supposed to get the charges and stuff like that today. Because remember, they go over um how the charges and how they apply everything, okay? Because they give the instructions and stuff like that to the jury, okay? So they know how to decipher whether he's guilty or innocent. And it's very important with a case like this because it's a little nuanced, it's a little complicated. So it's important for the judge to kind of like say, hey, thank you so much for the compliment, Love Pink. Hey, this is what this means, and this is so far, so uh he said that instead of doing that today, because we ended so late, what he's going to do is Monday, he'll have the jury come in and they'll get those instructions on Monday, and we could get a verdict on Monday. Because once they go deliberate, we're on verdict watch. We're on verdict watch. Was running after the van. People need to show them respect. Yeah, they definitely were running after the van. I was there, but I wasn't running after no van, child. Um, but there was a whole lot of people out there today. I saw Torre. That was the first time I saw. You guys familiar with Torre? Do y'all remember that interview that Torre did with R. Kelly? He said, when Torre said, he was like, "Do you like young girls?" And R. Kelly was like, "When you say young, how young are you talking?" And he was like, what did he say? He said, I forgot exactly what he said. But that I thought that was hilarious. So yeah, Torre was out there today. And he gave a good interview yesterday. Dumb down the language for the jurors to understand. Yeah, it's very, very important. It's very, very important. That was so crazy. That was so crazy. That interview was insane. And Torre talked about, I mean, on the low key, Torre got a weird case too. Like, why is he around a little bit, right? He got a little something. Remember, somebody accused him of what you call it, I think harassment, right, at the workplace or something like that, and he said something appropriate to a coworker or something along those lines. Um, all you need is one person to say no, and it's over. Yeah, I'm glad that you said that. So this is the situation with these FOs and these allegations of different things, right? It doesn't matter if somebody is enjoying something, you know, however many times. Once they start telling you they don't want to do something anymore, like don't be making them still do it, right? Don't be making them still do it. There's a lot of documentation, a lot of text messages, voice notes, and stuff like that where both of these women expressed that they really weren't with it anymore. They didn't like it. It wasn't good for their mental health. They were physically going through stuff. And like that's when it should have just ended. Okay. That's when it just should have just ended. And this is like just human decency. Like if you're in a relationship with somebody, right? Let's just say, even for a woman, if you're in a relationship with a man and there's something that you really like, and the man likes it in the beginning, and eventually he's like, I don't really want to do that anymore, and you just like, nah, keep doing it. That's whack. That's corny. That's not sexy anymore. No means no. Like if I don't want to do it anymore, you shouldn't be still making that person do it, or encouraging them to do it, or coercing them into doing it, or getting them high so they'll be more likely to do it. That's very corny. Like that's not okay. It's not okay. Um, no, finish with a strong ending. That's creepy. Okay, so yeah, we're gonna see what's the onto the. And did you see the jury's expressions? Yes, share. I um I believe that both sides did well. Okay, in different ways. I believe that that Mark Agnafilo, I said it earlier in the live. He's very, very animated. He has a sense of humor. He's very, very relatable. you know he's not robotic when he's talking. When he talks to you, when he's talking to the jury, it's like he's talking to you, a friend of mine. You know what I mean? You got to be kidding me. Like da, 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 like that type of thing, right? And people eat that up. Okay. um so yes, and he definitely did bring out some good points, but like I said earlier, you know um uh Comey, right, who's the one who gave the final rebuttal, right? She's not really like that, okay? But you don't need to be like that when you are just laying out the facts, okay, and just telling what you're telling and giving the jury the facts. You don't need to be doing all of that. And she didn't, and she still got her point across. What happened to Brian Steele? He's still there. Remember, there were certain lawyers that cross-examined certain people and stuff like that, and he was one of the people who cross-examined um, a couple of the witnesses, and he's still there. The team is still intact. I there are some attorneys on his team that I believe are stronger. I believe that Brian Steele is definitely one of the stronger ones. Nicole Westmoreland is another stronger one of the stronger ones. I believe the weakest one is the dude Xavier, the black man. I think he's the weakest one. Don't get me wrong, he's still good, okay, but I just believe he's just like the weakest one on the team of 10 or however many people is up there. Um, Let me see, Comey. What about the jury? Were they more into Mark or Comey? I believe that they were more into Mark only because he kind of like made them laugh a little bit more and stuff like that. But I don't know, like into, maybe that's not the right word, because they were definitely listening intently to both of them. Okay. They were absolutely listening intently to both of them. I saw another content creator like, oh, they weren't making eye contact. Yes, they were. They were listening. And if they weren't making eye contact, they were taking notes. They were taking notes like crazy. I was staring at that jury. They were taking crazy notes. How do I feel the case is going to go? I don't believe. I don't believe he's going home under any circumstances. I think he's going to be found guilty on something. I can't say that he's going to be found guilty on everything. I think that a lot is going to be contingent on the instructions that the jury gets on Monday. How long do I think the jury will be out? At least one day. Okay. And when I say one day, I mean like the better part of the day. I don't think that the jury will come back in 30 minutes. I think that they'll be, do I think that letting them go be home this weekend was a good move? Yeah, because, well, it depends on whose side you're on. Like if you think that Diddy is guilty, right, or you feel like he should do some type of time, then absolutely them going home marinating on the last words of Maureen Comey, that's a great thing for the prosecution. Absolutely. um they have to they need now they need to go in the room and decide. Well, here's the thing, they're going home because remember the jury's not sequestered. So if they were sequestered, right, then they might have let them I guess start deliberating today, maybe, quite possibly. Or they probably, even if they were sequestered, it's late in the day, they probably would have just sent them back to the hotel. Okay. But Monday they'll get the yeah, Slim Goody, Rico is the worst one, child. That's the life. That's automatic life right there. um so if I'm not mistaken, if I'm pretty sure that it is though. So Monday they'll get the charges and then they go deliberate after that. They go deliberate after that. um so yeah. um Now somebody asked me something else. Hold on a second. Do I think somebody asked me something else? um well, okay, mega crazy. It don't matter what Brian Steele says. Puffy is still gonna do time like 30 years. I don't know. We're gonna see. We're gonna see. Um, but yeah, it'll be interesting. It'll definitely be interesting. I just thought you said you love Comey's rebuttal. Yeah, I did like it. I really did. I did like it. You know, people like they like theatrics and personality and stuff like that. And I think all of that is all well and good, and the cute little sound bites and oh little gotcha and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, you know, people are just going to be interested in facts. Um, they should have. I was a jury. We stated 1992. John Gotti. Oh wow, that's wow. Okay, listen to me. Remember though, right? When the jury is sequestered, at the end of the day, yeah, I don't think he's gonna do 30. I don't think he's gonna do 30 years. He's definitely gonna do some time, but I don't know about 30 years though. I really don't know. So when the jury is sequestered for a long, 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 long time, they just want to get the heck out of there. So who knows what type of verdict? Are you really getting a true verdict? You understand what I'm saying? Where if you've been away from your family for 6, 8 weeks or 9 weeks or whatever, right? You've been away from your girlfriend, your boyfriend, honey, your kids, right? You've been away, maybe you been away from work. You're not making no money. What do you get? $40 a day for jury? You know what I'm saying? Like you just want to go home. So is that a true good verdict? Or is that you just wanting to get the heck up out of there? You know what I mean? So this is why 7 weeks. It this is why they really don't want people sequestered like that. Now the other thing on the flip side is I was also always I'm also a little concerned about someone getting to the jury, right? And not even necessarily, Diddy himself. Like this is a high profile case. You got people who are cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs out here. Remember, one of the jurors received a text message, right? And they were asking him, "Are you juror number 6?" Like, bro, how did you get my phone number? I mean, you can get anybody's phone number, but that's like, I wouldn't even want to be on that jury, to be honest with you. I wouldn't even want to be on that jury, okay? Unless you're looking for like a cute little coin afterwards, because everybody and their mom is gonna want to interview you, right? Or you could write a cute little book or whatever about your experience and stuff like that, and make a little coin or something like that. But no matter which way this goes, the people who are on that jury are going to be they're going to be harassed either way. Okay, they're going to be harassed whether you're pro Diddy or you want to see him get locked up or whatever. They're going to be harassed. They're going to be harassed. They're going to be harassed. They're going to be looking at their social media. They're going to be in the inbox. They're going to be it's I would not want to be on that jury. I don't want to be on that jury. I don't want people looking at my text from when I was still clucking, when I was still a bird 15 years ago. I don't need anybody doing, no. I don't want anybody in my stuff like that. So yeah. Look, I'm gonna go and hang out with my granddaughter. It's 10 o'clock. She's supposed to have been to sleep already. Her last day of school was on Thursday. She's going to kindergarten, so she has a little bit of time, and then she's gonna go to like little summer camp and stuff like that. Based on everything, what would I vote? I'm gonna be honest with you. I would vote guilty, definitely. I definitely would vote. She wants a sandwich. She wants a treat. But this is the thing. When I go live, right? When I go live, I always 100% of the time make it is a shame that they can be looked up. I always make her like little treats and snacks and give her stuff so she's occupied. I make sure that her little tablet is charged. I make sure that all her, everything is available so she doesn't, come in here and you know, so she doesn't come in here, but I have been on here for a minute though. But I think her mother's still here though, so that's another reason why she's not really coming here like that. I wouldn't even want the coin, knowing what. Right, exactly. She said, "I'm sad." She sure did say that. You heard that, right? Ah, my grandson is the same way. Listen, oh my gosh. So yeah, so she's gonna be going doing her little summer program and stuff like that. So but yeah, and the cats. Were you on live when I was here with my cat was in here doing the most? I do. Thank you very much, Jackie. Um, you said, "Did I pray your world is not over?" Here's the thing, right? I don't like the idea. I don't like the idea of any human. I don't like the idea of any human, um, you know, losing their livelihood or anything like that. But I also don't like the idea of people being abused either, right? I don't like that. I don't like that. And I personally, on a personal note, because somebody was watching my live the other day and like, you're biased or that. I'm not like a reporter or anything like that. Like I'm just here. I'm just giving my commentary. And I always say like, I might lean a certain way, but one thing I'm not going to do is lie. I'm not going to like blatantly lie to prove a point or anything like that. I'm definitely going to be honest, but I'm also going to be honest about how I feel about certain things, right? I feel like that's fair. I'm not a journalist. Like I don't work for the Washington Post. I don't work for like NPR. I'm just here giving my opinion. Okay. Um, you know, so it is what it is, right? Thank you very much. Thank you so much. Oh, thank you so much, Bridget. I really appreciate it. Definitely appreciate it. I'll be back up there. And I definitely will be, giving more content and doing more stuff for sure, for sure. I definitely 1000% will be giving more content and stuff like that. So you guys have a wonderful evening. My daughter's getting ready to go. She's gonna go. She has a little event that she's gonna go to with her friends. So I know for a fact my granddaughter's probably gonna want to hang out with me and stuff like that. So I'm gonna chill with her for a little bit, and I will see you guys in the next one. Please give me a follow. I'm trying so hard to get up to 2K. It's a struggle. It's a struggle stream. I'm trying to get some stuff happening here. Okay, I love the energy here on TikTok. I love the energy here on Facebook as well. Um, and I will see you guys next time. Give me a follow. Talk to you soon. On Facebook. Thank you so much, everybody, for sticking with me. I really appreciate it. This was a long one, 2 hours. Oh my God, this is a lot. This is a long one. So if you're still here watching, thank you so much. I have this little background overlay thing. I'm not really too crazy about it. I think I'm not going to do that next time or whatever, but I'm going to, this is going to be uploaded to YouTube automatically. Facebook deletes the live videos. Facebook deletes the live videos after 30 days. So if you want to go back and look at this at any time, go on to my YouTube and please follow me there, YouTube at Shanoa Can Talk. And I will see you guys later. Thank you so much, everybody.